But we have two, so I
Yeah,
thought
what I'll
we
do
could
is-
do,
yeah.
the who's ever up on deck, we can give, yeah, this was off. Thanks. Well, I don't know that I can, yeah. And otherwise, there's handheld ones too.
Actually, why don't what's that?
Are they talking to these guys or?
We'll give you, you want a lavalier or not? Or do you want to walk around? Okay, whatever works, all right.
And then our presentations will be up here.
Yep.
Got it?
I'll set those up while you,
Since there's two of us, maybe I can just
Yep.
run off the stage.
That sounds good. Okay.
yeah, we figured we'd have one for the person on deck and one who's
She's
speaking.
gonna, yep, and she's gonna use the hand mic.
I'm just gonna use a hand mic,
Okay,
or I mean, I guess I can use that.
you want that?
I guess.
It's probably easier for me to use the hand mic because I don't have to do a whole lot of presenting.
I just have a. Sometimes it doesn't catch my voice.
And this is
Your
the,
voice is so soft. Yeah.
No, I have a soft voice. It's just I like you have to talk down into it.
do these also advance? Yeah.
Yeah, just I don't think does it reverse it. Easiest way to reverse is just with a vacuum.
It's on.
Okay, now it's on.
Okay, I'll keep it off. So I have to start talking.
And the volume controls I have up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna, because you're the same color, I don't know if that makes a difference. But I'll turn mine off before you're on anyway. So.
Okay.
Well, they can both be on.
Okay.
They're not on the speaker.
I'm gonna give you this, because I'm just gonna need to press one button here. So, you can either
Advance
press
here?
that to advance or that.
And that's the laser.
Yep. Okay, good afternoon. Thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate your time and spending that with us today. We hope to provide you with some good information that maybe you weren't aware of and maybe you are aware of, but we can provide you a little more detail and depth in that and how compressed natural gas can be a fuel that would save you money. The workshop is brought to you by the Energy Cluster of the Lakeshore Industry Cluster Initiative. And the Lakeshore Industry Cluster Initiative is a 5-county initiative with the counties of Manitowoc, Sheboygan, Calumet, Kewaunee, and Door counties. The Energy Cluster is one of 4 clusters that we're focusing on. The other 3 are manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism. So energy has certainly been cranking along with the work that they've been doing in looking at the compressed natural gas and really looking at what is the demand for that so that we can look at this further. And you can see we've had a number of those who are sponsoring today's activities and basically through being presenters and providing you with the information. And also like to just acknowledge as well the sponsors of the Lakeshore Industry Cluster Initiative that have brought our industry together to be engaged on how do we develop new economic development strategies for the region. So with that, I'm going to move into the program for today and introduce Merlin Raab, who is one of the co-chairs of the Energy Cluster. And Merlin is a renewable energy consultant with Wisconsin Public Service Corporation. Merlin.
Is it on? Yep. Good afternoon, and thanks for coming. Yes, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Energy Cluster, as well as Steve Dvorak. Steve, I lost you. There he is. Steve is also one of the co-chairs. He's with DVO and can answer a lot of the questions I can't as it relates to this. And then one of the other co-chairs is Andy Onesti. You may know Andy. He works for Manitowoc Public Utilities. Again, beautiful afternoon. Thanks for taking time out to come and meet with us. Our first two speakers are were pretty much instrumental in helping us to put together this program. I don't know that we would have been able to put together the program and come up with all our fine speakers this afternoon without them. So if we could give them a hand just to start out, I would appreciate it. And our first speaker is going to be Maria Redmond with the Wisconsin State Energy Office. And Maria works in all sorts of areas, primarily, I think, though, in the alternative fuels vehicles. She typically drives around in a CNG Civic, but she said she lost out to her husband today for that. So, but our second speaker is basically, we'll follow her immediately, is Emily DeVillers, and Emily is with Wisconsin Clean Cities out of Milwaukee. And they do a lot of work in this area as it relates to alternative fuel vehicles, and I think Maria and Emily kind of work hand in hand with all sorts of different projects and programs. Is that fair? Is that correct? So, please welcome Maria.
All right. So can you hear me okay? I never know if I have it at the right level. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the basics with you today. I have been working in the transportation fuel sector for the state of Wisconsin for about 12 years now. And it's been interesting to watch the different interests in alternative fuels, be it ethanol, biodiesel, natural gas, propane, and right now we've seen a huge interest in natural gas. So really what I wanted to do is kind of introduce you to our office, introduce you to some of the basics regarding natural gas, and then really give it up to the other speakers to give you a lot of details on some of the biogas efforts here in the state and around the country, and some of the case studies and examples that you can bring back to your company or your application and see if natural gas would be a good fit for you. I think we're going to take questions after my presentation and Emily's presentation, so if you can hold them, that would be great. So just briefly, the State Energy Office, our office really likes to be the go-to source for energy-related questions. Our mission is to increase energy efficiency, develop renewable and alternative energy sources, promote energy-related economic development activities, help to create green jobs and alternative renewable energy-related jobs, and reduce our reliance on imported oil. Now, my sector is related to transportation fuels. That's what I'm a specialist in. And we have a number of staff that work on energy efficiency. They work with schools and local governments. I work with fleets and petroleum marketers. If you have any energy questions, we certainly would welcome you to contact our office at any time related to any energy or sustainability efforts that you may have. And we would certainly, direct you to resources or provide information or meet with you to see if we can help you along your way. We also manage over $85 million in federal energy grants related to grants and loans related to energy. So that's another benefit of contacting our office and being in contact with us, is that we're always on the lookout for funding opportunities and ways to fund projects. My area, again, transportation fuels, that's where all my money comes in, and I push most of that out for vehicles and infrastructure projects. So I would encourage you, if you are interested in getting on our list and getting contact regarding natural gas itself or just general funding opportunities, to just touch base with me afterwards, drop me off your card, and I'll add you to our list. One of the reasons why we're here is because that Wisconsin spends a lot of money on petroleum. It is one of our largest energy consumption areas in the state. We have no fossil fuel deposits, therefore we're not making any fuel here to use in our vehicles. We have one small oil refinery, and petroleum is really Wisconsin's largest energy expenditure. And if you can see that 48.7% of our energy consumption, end-use energy consumption, is related to petroleum here in the state. So it's plays a big role in how we're using energy. Wisconsin is a consumer, therefore we are consuming, we're importing all of our transportation, most of our transportation fuels. Now, mind you, we do have some production, ethanol, some biodiesel production where people are fleets are using ethanol and biodiesel, but that's such a small percentage of what we're actually consuming here in the state. Our on-road diesel consumption is in 2011. We're collecting 2012 numbers now, but 736.7 million gallons. Gasoline is 2.5 billion gallons. And we only keep about $1.3 million here in Wisconsin because of taxes and taxation. All the rest of our money goes out of the state. So one of the things we want to look at is what are the opportunities that we have here in Wisconsin to either offset our current petroleum consumption with some other type of fuel, like ethanol or biodiesel, for example, or how can we reduce our energy consumption, or how can we reduce the amount of fuel that we're using here in the state. One of the things is natural gas, and what we're looking at with natural gas, there are a number of benefits that we're looking at that make it a very positive thing here for Wisconsin. Even though we have to import a lot of our energy, one of the major benefits is energy security. So one of the things that we get to do is we get to take advantage of a domestic product. And you'll hear that throughout all of the presentations here this afternoon, that because the U.S. is the largest producer of natural gas here in the world. And so how do we tap into this resource, and how do we take advantage of it? And the way that we take advantage of it is integrating that fuel into fleets that have that use a lot of diesel and use a lot of gasoline, and give fleets the opportunity to take advantage of the economic benefits, and then also keep that money here in the U.S. and domestically. So there's an energy security benefit there. One of the other things to think about is drive range. There is a shorter drive range. It's shorter than gasoline, but the thing to think about is it's comparable power and comparable speed, but also it's a lot less expensive. And so there's a balance between the range and the cost. And so one of the things that we work on with Clean Cities is helping fleets to do, what we will be working on, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is helping fleets to do assessments to figure out if this is a really good choice for you based on your fleet size, the way that you use fuel, locations of facilities to refuel, etc. So this consideration can be dealt with along the way. The other issue that, or the other benefit, is the public health and environmental benefits. Lower greenhouse gas emissions, lower particulate pollution, lower carcinogens. So basically lower emissions, which is, contributes to our natural resources here in the state. And then of course, deployment. Natural gas has been deployed in other countries. I think, Mark, you said, what did you have for a number on your slide? I thought maybe you said there were like millions. In other countries, we have like 200,000. 15 million in other countries, and the U.S. has about 200,000. I have 120, but I'm going to use your statistic because it's bigger and better. But basically, you see the comparison in other countries where they've tapped into the natural gas. You're seeing a lot more of these vehicles. This is more of a newer market for us here in the U.S., and so it's slowly coming into play, and you're seeing more vehicles on the road. But it is proven and established. It's just getting the buy-in, talking to people about the return on investment, and making sound business decisions. There are a lot of factors involved with that. And again, most of the presentations will cover this throughout the day. So basically, compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas are the major options we're talking about here. We also have renewable natural gas, which Mark is going to get into more of. But compressed natural gas is stored in onboard tanks under high pressure. Its fuel economy is very similar to gasoline, and they measure it in gasoline gallon equivalents. So 1 gasoline gallon equivalent would be 5.7 pounds of natural gas. Liquefied natural gas is kept at cold temperatures cryogenically. It is stored in a double-wall, vacuum-insulated pressure vessel, and it's primarily used in heavy-duty vehicles. And again, they measure it in gasoline gallon equivalents, sometimes diesel gallon equivalents, but the gasoline gallon equivalent is 1.5 gallons of LNG. You're going to have a few different options as it relates to natural gas vehicles. There's a dedicated natural gas vehicle, which run only on natural gas. They consider it better performance because the vehicle is optimized to use natural gas. And of course, the lower emissions. But there's really only one optimized natural gas vehicle on the market, which is dedicated, which is the Honda Civic GX. and that's a passenger vehicle. So may not necessarily meet the needs of your fleet if that's the only option. There's biofuel natural gas vehicles that actually have 2 fueling systems. The one thing I do want to mention about the dedicated natural gas vehicle is that what you are limited to is natural gas. So you have to plan your route and make sure that you have fueling along the way, because you could run out of fuel if you're not near a natural gas station. With the biofuel natural gas vehicles, you actually you have 2 fuel systems. So if you run out of natural gas, you do have the backup of a diesel or gasoline system. Generally, these vehicles are going to be conversions, aftermarket conversions, but there are a couple of OEM options now that you can order with the dual or the biofuel systems. And then there's dual fuel NGVs, and basically what you're using is natural gas and diesel simultaneously in the system, and they are you'll primarily find dual fuel systems in the heavy duty market. So I just wanted to show you one of the vehicles that has natural gas tank, and basically you're not going to put the tank above the vehicle or below it in any compartment. You're going to see it in the back of a vehicle. Like if it's a truck, it's going to be in the bed of the vehicle. For this example, it's in the the space, the bed of the truck or the bed of the van. In the Honda Civic that I drive, it's in the trunk. So majority of my trunk space is gone. I have about this wide, that long of trunk space, which is good for a couple suitcases, whatever, kid stuff. But that is one of the compromises that you will have. But if you have bigger vehicles, you can make it work depending on what type of vehicles and what type of options and specs you're looking at. There are a number of different types of fleet applications. Light duty natural gas vehicles, you're going to find more private consumers having the light duty vehicles and government fleets. Again, the Honda Civic GX is a good example of a light duty vehicle that you find more consumers and government fleets using. Medium duty natural gas vehicles, vans and shuttles, airports and taxi fleets. And then the heavy duty market is where we're seeing the most activity with the refuse haulers, transit buses, school buses, etc. Your best natural gas application is going to be in a high fuel use vehicle that returns to base operations on a daily basis. Also, a very repetitive route is helpful too, and the recommendation is to use a preset a geographic operating area. Now, one of the things that we've seen is with some fleets who purchase these vehicles, they have to adjust their routes to help maximize their mileage and maximize their fuel use, especially if they're using a dedicated system. So what we're seeing is that as more fleets tend to adopt this fuel, more fleets also become interested because they're seeing the examples of fleets that are having success and success with the fuel, and more infrastructure also becoming available, because as more fleets look for the fuel, the petroleum marketers are stepping up and saying, well, there's a number of fleets in this area that are interested in natural gas. Potentially we should put some infrastructure here because we have a market to utilize the fuel. So there's a hand-in-hand kind of symbiotic relationship between the petroleum marketer or the station installation and the fleets who are looking into purchasing these types of vehicles. Speaking of infrastructure, there's a couple of different types of refueling you'll see. You'll see time fill refueling, which is good for centrally based fleets and with consistent schedules. And so a lot of times it's maybe like a waste hauler fleet where they go out in the morning and come back in the afternoon or the evening. Time fill, you would hook it up and it would slow fill basically overnight. So when you get back in the morning, school bus fleet would be another good example of one of the time fill fleets. Fast fill fueling is what you're going to see when you go to a Kwik Trip or Gain Fuels or Trillium, where you drive up to the pump like you would for gasoline or diesel, but you're putting compressed natural gas into your vehicle and you're only there for a few minutes and it fills it right up. And then there's some cases where there'll be combo fills. So the City of Milwaukee is a good example. They have one compressor system, one whole system that helps with the time fill system in the back lot that covers their refuse haulers, and then they have a public CNG station in the front of their lot that anybody can use, so they have one system that does both. So CNG stations, we have about 27 public CNG stations already throughout the state, about 7 private natural gas stations, and 2 private biogas stations, one in Janesville and one in Dane County, at the Dane County landfill. And Wisconsin is very unique in that we have a great opportunity for renewable natural gas through our anaerobic digestion. Through anaerobic digesters, for example, we have agriculture and manufacturing, food manufacturing, all of which can contribute to waste to energy and being able to utilize natural gas as a transportation fuel. And that's one of the reasons why we're here as well, is to explore that option. And Mark has a great presentation and will give you more information on the biogas to transportation fuel. We have one public liquefied natural gas station, which I think somebody stated this morning that it's probably the only one in the Midwest. So, Wisconsin is definitely a leader in that area. And there are about 2,500 gasoline, diesel stations throughout the state. And if you look, we have 27 natural gas stations. So we have a long way to go, but there's so much activity with the fleet interest and with the petroleum marketers and utilities putting these stations in that we anticipate about 200 to 300 new stations within the next 5 years, which will really fill in those gaps and reduce that, uneasiness of being able to refuel along a route, or for me, traveling across the state and knowing that I can get from Madison to Minneapolis and not ever have to worry about running out of fuel. One of the other things to think about is economics. This is like the key point of why people are pursuing natural gas. You go to the pump and diesel prices right now are over $4. Gasoline prices are around $3.85. Natural gas prices right now are ranging from anywhere from $1.50 to $1.79, $1.99. So half or below half of the price of diesel and gasoline. That's a big deal where your fleet and your primary, most of your money goes out for fuel. Your return on investment on these vehicles are going to be very fast. Current natural gas prices are dramatically lower, and with the current, there's a tax credit right now that marketers can take advantage of, and it's per gallon tax credit that helps drive down the prices by 50 cents as well. So that's something that we should think about. And I'm going to leave it up to Jeff. He has a very good slide on commodity and how the commodity prices the change in commodity prices affect natural gas versus gasoline. I'm going to let him explain it, because last time I tried to explain it, I think everybody looked a little confused. So I'm going to let him do that. But it's interesting to see the way that commodities move and the difference in prices. So again, how many people got here on natural gas? 1, 2, a handful of people, yeah. So that's good, because had I asked that question, 4 or 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been anyone. Like I said, I would have gotten here by natural gas, but my husband won out on the coin toss to drive the vehicle, so I didn't get to drive it today. So I felt like I was kind of sinning driving up here and not using natural gas. But one of the things to think about is that there is a lot of interest in this. The natural gas is available. It's becoming more available. But there are still some issues. The reason why y'all didn't get here on natural gas is because we still have a limited supply. Domestic natural gas supplies have only increased recently. There's limited OEM options and conversion options for vehicles that might not necessarily meet the needs of your fleet. And really, there's the chicken and egg issue. It will take time to overcome the issue of supply and demand, vehicles versus infrastructure. But as what we're seeing, again, the success that we've seen in Wisconsin is this simultaneous movement of fleets who are interested and marketers who are and retailers who are willing to put the infrastructure equipment in. And then we have this great opportunity to look at renewable natural gas here in the state too, and look at possible benefits and benefits for anaerobic digestion and dairy farms and trying to find a better end use for the gas and the methane that's coming off of these digesters. So we continue to support these types of efforts. So just briefly, we in the State Energy Office are trying to continue to move this effort forward as best we can, and we have a couple of different programs that have been supporting vehicles and infrastructure, and this particular program, Forwarding Wisconsin's Fuel Choice, I slightly mentioned it earlier. Really the goal here is to expand alternative fuels use by expanding accessibility off of highways, so when you're driving, you know where to exit to get fuel. That's an issue that we're finding here in the state. I wouldn't know if I drove up from Madison to Green Bay where exactly I could find it unless I mapped it ahead of time. So we want you to be able to find it easily accessible sites. Offer training to first responders, public safety officers, and this is the key part that I want to mention to folks, and I would really highly recommend you contact me or talk to Emily. We are going to be doing some fleet assessments and helping fleets to decide if this is a good move for you. Take a look at the composition of your fleet, how you use fuel, is there infrastructure nearby, and this is not just for natural gas. This is for all the types of fuels. So if you have an interest in a number of different types of fuels or technologies, this would be a good option for you. We launched this program earlier this year and we're working on it now. It's a 2-year program, but we hope to get all the fleet assessments done before the end of the year. The other program that we've been working on is the Clean Transportation Program. And although we don't have any funding left for this program, one of the things I did want to mention is that natural gas is basically 25% of this program. There's so much interest in natural gas that a lot of the money for vehicles and infrastructure went towards natural gas. You can find more information at the State Energy Office, the Clean Cities website, Alternative Fuels Data Center, and actually Emily is going to come up and talk about that a bit, walk you through some of the tools that you can find on there. And if you have questions for me, this is how I can be reached. And I know someone's going to ask if the presentations are going to be posted, and I believe they're going to be posted on the Energy Cluster site. That's it.
Hey, can everyone hear me fine? Okay, good. Well, I worked for Wisconsin Clean Cities. The Clean Cities program was started by the Department of Energy in 1993, so it is celebrating its 20th anniversary. The mission was to reduce the petroleum consumption in the United States by focusing on alternative fuels in the transportation sector. The Clean Cities program is neutral on alternative fuels, so whether it's natural gas, propane, ethanol, biodiesel, any electricity, we can help fleets and consumers go to an alternative fuel, find out what works best in their fleet. So Wisconsin Clean Cities was started in 1994, and it was mainly focused in the southeast area since that was in non-attainment for particulate matter and ozone pollution, but we were recently designated for the whole state. So we do cover way up here all the way to Bayfield and all the way down to Racine. So there's 80-some coalitions across the country that do exactly what we do. And together we have reduced petroleum consumption by 2.5 billion, or we're on track to do that by 2020. But we've really made a lot of strides in Wisconsin in the last couple of years. We've reduced petroleum consumption by over 5 million gallons last year alone. And we really couldn't have done that without our members and stakeholders. Every winter, we collect information on how much alternative fuels fleets have used in the previous year, and we also find out how much fuel was sold by companies such as Kwik or E.H. Wolf & Sons, and we all collect that and send it into the Department of Energy so that Wisconsin gets recognition on how much we've done, and we've really have done a lot in the last year, especially with 2012. And we really couldn't have done that without our members. And there's a lot of members here today: Gain Clean Fuel, Kwik, Truck Country, CNG, and we are a nonprofit, so we really couldn't be here at all today without them. what we provide our members is recognition for awards and projects that they're doing. We provide them networking and speaking opportunities. We also let them know when grants are available and out. So whether it's grants through Maria, EPA, DOE, the EPA school bus rebate program, anything like that, we really let our members know that right away. We offer assistance in whether that is looking over their grants, making sure they have it all there before they submit that, or also getting them feedback on what is qualified for a grant, what isn't. Sometimes these grants can be really confusing, and it's really nice to get help on that. So we really provide a lot of assistance with grants also. Today I'm going to really focus on the tools that are developed by the Department of Energy and the laboratories across the country. And we really promote these tools, and they really help consumers and fleets decide on which alternative fuel would work best for their fleet or household, and how they would go about to fund it, or which vehicles would work best. So I'm really going to go over the tools that are available to you. The first one is the station locator. So we update this as soon as we find out there's an alternative fuel station. We'll update this online tool, and you can plug in a zip code and a different alternative fuel, and everything in that area will pop up. So here are the CNG stations that are in Northeast Wisconsin, and it's actually not up to date. They update it twice a month, and so it doesn't have the recent CNG station that's in Appleton, which is by Kwik, which just opened up a couple of weeks ago. What's also great about this tool is that you can plan trips. So I know someone from the Wisconsin DNR that bought a CNG vehicle in New York. She plugged in New York, or the Bronx, New York to Milwaukee, and found all of her CNG stations along the way. And she was able to call them ahead of time, make sure the CNG station was up and running, or if it was private, she asked for access to it. So it really helped her plan her trip so she could actually travel back with her natural gas vehicle. There's also the light duty vehicle guide. So if you're interested in a particular fuel and a year, a make, a model, you can put that information in and everything will come up that's available to you right now. So here are all of the CNG vehicles that are out there right now that you could go and buy. One great tool is also the vehicle cost calculator. So you can put in information about your commute, the average miles that you travel every year, what the price of electricity is, gasoline or CNG, and also what percent on the highway you spend. And you can put in the vehicle that you are driving right now and the vehicle you want to go to, and up will pop how much you could save. So here is a 2012 compressed natural gas Honda Civic, a hybrid Honda Civic, and a regular gasoline Honda Civic. And you can see that the CNG Honda Civic really would save the most money. And this is based off of $1.79 for CNG and $3.84 for gasoline. And it's really neat and great way. The $1.79 is based off of the price that Kwik sells. They've opened up 10 stations in the last year. They haven't changed their price on their CNG stations. So it was really easy to figure out the price of CNG. Gasoline, I don't know. It could change tomorrow, it could change next week. So it'll give you the best information that you have. Last summer, I was making the look to go to CNG. And I put in the vehicle that I had owned, and then the vehicle I wanted to buy. And I have a 40-mile commute, and I would save $2,000. And that was really the decider on to go to CNG, and my vehicle is outside, and if you're interested during the break, you can go and look at it. So it really helped me to make my decision to go to natural gas. For heavy-duty vehicles, there's also another guide, the same way light duty. You can plug in your alternative fuel vehicle, your makes, your models, your years, and there's a lot more heavy-duty CNG vehicles out there than light duty, so there are a lot more options out there for you. For fleets, there's also another cost calculator. This is the petroleum reduction planning tool, and you can put in a lot of different information for a fleet that can reduce their petroleum use. Whether that's reducing your miles traveled, using biodiesel in a diesel engine, or replacing your vehicles with compressed natural gas vehicles, or just with newer vehicles. So I plugged in replacing 10 diesel vehicles with 10 CNG vehicles. And according to this, you would save over $100,000 a year. Another great thing on the AFDC website, which is Alternative Fuels Data Center, is the case studies. So if you are a school bus company, a police office, if you have heavy-duty garbage trucks, or if you do delivery vans, you can put in that information, look at the different case studies and experiences that fleets all across the country have had, and really learn from their experiences. Learn what you should and maybe shouldn't do, what technologies worked great for them, and really come out with some ideas that would work best for your fleet. So we really are just an asset education outreach tool. We are, again, neutral on any alternative fuel. And if there's any questions that you have about CNG or any of the others, about grants, about vehicles, we'll really try and give you the best information that we can get you. And also, because we have clean cities all across the country, if we don't know the answer, we have 80 other specialists that do exactly what we do, that we'll find you that answer. So do you have any questions for Maria or I? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria and Emily. And we will, and everybody, I think pretty much everybody around will be around for the end, except for our next speaker. So if you have any questions for Mark, who's going to be leaving, our next speaker is Mark Torresani, and he is with Cornerstone Environmental Group out of Madison. He's a regional vice president and engineer. He, well, he's getting mic'd up here. I'll continue to dance. What Mark does is, as you're going to see here, he travels all around the country putting in biogas-related systems, cleanup and fueling systems. So this is, we're going to take a little bit of a twist here, and actually that's one of the reasons that we're actually working on this as a group, is that what we're hoping to do is develop a market for locally produced biogas that would come either out of a industrial system or out of an agricultural type system, and the idea being is that we develop a regional market for it. Our goal today is to try to help to get somebody that might get development of just a CNG fleet in general, and then once that gets established, then hopefully to be able to sell some biogas into that already established market. So please welcome Mark Torresani.
It's great to be here and talk about something that I've been working on for a number of years. I started working on bio-CNG and biogas projects back in the mid-'80s, a little place called Donahue Engineering in Sheboygan. So I put some time in there. A few of you probably know that place. But through the years, there have been a lot of projects looking at how to utilize biogas, whether it was direct use and run it in a boiler, take that gas and produce electricity with it, take that, worked on a project in California, produce that into LNG. The problem has always been how to get that biogas into something scalable, small scale. And digesters, a lot of landfills and wastewater treatment plants are what I consider small scale, especially when we start looking at large natural gas production facilities. So I want to talk to you today about is really some of the projects we've done, some of the work that we've done, but I think more importantly, some of the opportunities that especially Wisconsin has in front of us. I think one of the things I've seen, number might be wrong, but we're somewhere just shy of 30 ag digesters, and I think a lot of groups in dairy industries, food processors would like to actually expand that. It's the same for municipalities. One of the problems we're seeing in the projects we work on nationwide is the price that is currently being paid for energy, electricity, especially from biogas. Those prices have gone down. Contracts we've been involved with have been somewhere in the vicinity of 6 to 12.5 cents a kilowatt hour. We did one in Dane County not long ago that was 10.5 cents a kilowatt hour. What we're seeing across the country right now is getting closer to avoided cost because a lot of the utilities have met their renewable portfolio standard, and they're starting to offer somewhere between 3 and 6 cents, which essentially is break even, and nobody wants to operate systems. We're actually looking at several gas to electricity systems that are currently operating in the state that are actually looking at shutting down because they just can't cover their operating costs once they're up to renewing their contract with the utility company. One of the things I want to do today is really just go over a brief overview. We've had a number of speakers that are going to touch on the CNG. I'm going to be specifically talking about the biogas and turning that into CNG as a vehicle fuel. There are some specific characteristics at biogas that make it a very good vehicle fuel if it is cleaned and conditioned properly. I want to talk about some of those opportunities and how we can maybe take advantage of those. Then actually give you some example projects that we've got 5 projects that are up and running right now across the country. We actually started 2 of them last week and show you that, but I think more importantly, we've certainly learned a lot over the projects, the course of the last several years and the projects that we've taken forward. You know, there really is a CNG revolution going on. I think you're here because this is not the first time you've heard of CNG. And my guess is a lot of you are here because you're exploring that option. Will CNG work for me? There's a lot of benefits to using CNG as a vehicle fuel, but there always has to be an economic driver to have to use it. I always use this rule that it's got to be as good as what you're using for less money, or something that's better than what you're using for the same amount of money. And I think the case you can make for CNG, it is as good as what you're using for about half the price. Now there is a cost that comes with that, with the infrastructure and the added extra cost for that vehicle, so that has to be weighed on a case-by-case basis. Certainly natural gas is going to be here to stay. I'd be hard-pressed to find somebody in this room that hasn't seen what's been going on with fracking and natural gas. Back in 2007, 2008, a lot of the projects we were working on were pipeline injection, essentially taking biogas to natural gas quality and put that in a pipeline. Very similar aspects to turning it into vehicle fuel. However, at that time, natural gas was selling just shy of $14 a decatherm. I looked yesterday at commodity prices, it was up to $4 a decatherm. So fracking has what's changed that. The supply of natural gas in this country over the last several years has changed. And based on the Marcellus Shale and other shale foundations, it's not going away. The fracking, certainly you've heard about environmental aspects with that. Certainly that probably can be improved, but natural gas is a fuel of the future for the United States. We are seeing that fleets are converting. There are a lot of economic benefits to converting. There's also the environmental benefits, and we're starting to see suppliers and buyers of products saying, how green are you? What's your sustainability effort? Taking a look at that. Energy independence and certainly environmental benefits, and we'll touch base on that as well. Just the basics on natural gas. It is compressing that gas up to 3,000 to 5,000 psi. The older systems that you may have seen that ran back in the early 80s were at 3,000 psi. Current vehicles are running at 3,600 psi. And that's one of the things when you check at stations. I think in Madison, MG&E had an older station that has currently been replaced, but that will only take the fuel up to 3,000 psi, so you'd essentially get 3/4 of a tank full. Current systems are all up to 3,600 psi. When I first got in this, you may be asking, well, why aren't people using more LNG? The advantage of LNG is it is a more dense fuel, and you can pack more energy into a smaller space. Essentially, it gives you more range. It's a much more difficult fuel to work with, and you'll see that in presentations later. It's stored in cryogenic tanks. A thermos bottle is essentially what that's stored in. CNG is an easier fuel to work with, to store, and it's also less expensive. You know, here's some of the numbers. These are about a year old on the number of vehicles. About 15 million vehicles throughout the world are running on CNG. It's probably more than this right now because it has been increasing by quite a bit over the last year, about 200,000 vehicles in the U.S. We're starting to see the infrastructure come into place. One of the things that I believe is holding this back is vehicles in the United States have to go through a certification process for air emissions. They have to be US EPA certified for air emissions. There's a number of vehicles in Europe and in other countries that are out. Those vehicles will get in and they will get here in the United States once we get a significant number and consumers want to pay for those and the infrastructure is up. It is, what I've heard is about $250,000 to get each engine and vehicle certified. So that adds to the price of the CNG vehicles and also substantially to the conversion kits here in the United States. And you know, powering, like I said, it does get equal performance. I mean, this is running ships, ferries across the U.S., across the world, to trains being run in Europe on CNG. I actually looked at rickshaws in India, motorcycles in Italy, to cars and trucks of all shapes and sizes. This is not necessarily new technology, it's better technology. We hear of vehicles that ran before and they had problems. Yeah, did anybody use a cell phone? The first one that came out probably back in the mid-80s. Have they gotten any better? Same with CNG vehicles. They are better than they were 20 years ago. And the one thing about the renewable natural gas that I'll talk about, it is something we do produce here in Wisconsin, and I think something we can take advantage of. And unlike ethanol or other products, for the most part, biogas is made from a waste product that typically is tossed to the side. And here's what we're looking at. If you take a look, this methane right there, CH4, that probably makes up 90% of the fuel value, 95% in natural gas. Same compound, very simple compound. That's where the energy is coming from. When you produce biogas, digesters will be up about at the 65%. Landfills we'll see down at that 50%. The CO2, you can burn that in an engine, and there's plenty of engines producing electricity. The problem with vehicle fuel, that CO2, you're going to pay money to compress that and put it in a tank. You get no value out of it. That's why we remove that. If you compress that, you'd probably be getting 30 to 40% mileage range. It could be done, but it just doesn't make economic sense. Here's a couple examples of projects in Wisconsin. Two of them actually happen to be microturbine projects, the Sauk County landfill and the Sheboygan wastewater treatment plant. And you got the Crave Brothers Dairy Farm. These are all electrical production. But what you see there is this is not necessarily, if you have a site that has electrical production in, it's not pick one or the other. You can certainly do both of them. And you'll see a couple of the projects that we have here later are done. But there are a number of sources, and we're certainly seeing a lot of organics diversion from going to landfills, and we're starting to see people that have wastewater treatment plants, food waste digesters, agricultural digesters. They want those organics because those organics, those waste organics now are starting to mean revenue from the form of gas. And I know that's very true for the Clear Horizons digester down in Dane County, which is the community digester, I think based on 4 or 5 farms. You know, one of the things is biogas, you look at, well, can you really compete in the marketplace? Certainly, it is a significant savings over gasoline and diesel. Right now, the biogas, and you'll see the numbers here as they come up, it can be cheaper than natural gas, but I would say it's similar. It depends upon the site-specific conditions. One of the things about looking at biogas as a fuel, if you're a producer or if you're a purchaser of natural gas, it is not unthinkable to lock into a 10 or 20-year fixed rate for that gas. You're not playing in the world market with a local producer. If you're locking in at $2 a gallon of gas equivalent or a gallon of diesel equivalent, if you're going to that, you are locking in your rates. I don't think any other energy sources can probably say they can do that. It is the greenest fuel that you'll see just from a carbon footprint standpoint. And you can do this debate, but that is what the scientists are telling us. And this is a question that we came up. This is certainly one when we went through startup last week in Sacramento, California on a project. Am I going to take that fuel that you're taking out of that landfill, out of that digester, and you're going to put it into $2 million worth of vehicles? Who's going to give us the guarantee that that fuel is going to meet specifications? So we have gone through and we've put the assurance on, we do the testing. It is held to a higher standard. Who's giving you that certification guarantee once you put that in your vehicle? Some stations will do that to some degree if you only use their fuel, but natural gas varies across the country as well. It is not a single product that meets a single standard. Here's what I talked about, just a little bit of an idea. If you take a look at, we measure gas in cubic feet per minute, standard cubic feet per minute, and a 50 standard cubic feet per minute is a very small quantity of landfill gas. I think you can probably run about 60 kW, a couple microturbines on that gas. But you can see what it actually produces in gasoline in a day, the equivalent from 200 to 275 gallons of gasoline a day. So you start to take a look at some of the larger projects, you know, a 200 CFM system, you're going to be producing right around 1,000 gallons of gasoline a day. We're looking at projects right now that are putting 5 to 10 bio-CNG 200s in. So now you're starting to get up to possibly 10,000 gallons of gasoline equivalent a day, gallons of diesel. That's a couple tanker trucks of fuel. So the problem with the projects right now is there's typically not enough vehicles to use the fuel that's being produced. So if you're going out and taking a look at, hey, how can we make a business model of this? The business model looks great if you're going to be selling the fuel, but you got to have the customers or the use of all of that fuel. What we're seeing are people starting small with systems that they can add on. The next question people ask, well, how much does a system cost? These are general numbers that you'll see right there for $1 million on what these systems are. And you can see to go to 4 times the gas, you're going to pay twice the amount. I mean, there's a lot of fixed construction cost, installation cost, permitting cost. The 50 SCFM system, to be honest, it's marginal on the economics, but we have put a few of those in where people want to go forward with this and they get some grant money to go forward. But when you start looking at the system, at a 200 SCFM system, you start to take a look at what your fuel costs are, 70 cents a gallon of gas equivalent. If you start putting multiple units in, that price can go down. And we're talking today where prices are for CNG. Heard this morning and stopped at Kwik Trip, $1.79 a gallon of gas equivalent. And I think it's somewhere around $2 a gallon of gas equivalent nationwide. One thing biogas does qualify for are RINs, which are essentially a tradable commodity similar to ethanol and biodiesel because it is an organic source. So we have helped people get those, and that's been essentially somewhere in the line of 65 to 75 cents a gallon of gas equivalent. So that can add on another $5 to $7 a decatherm for the value of that fuel. And this is just the basics of what you have to do. I mean, biogas comes in, it has hydrogen sulfide in it, it may have some VOCs, some siloxanes. You know, these are things that can cause trouble with the engine, the fuel line, and it's not just vehicles, but it's any engines, any boilers. We have to remove those. And the thing specific about the vehicle fuel is you also have to remove the CO2. And there are different technologies out there to do this. With the bio-CNG system, we think we have selected components that fit very well to minimize operations and also scalable down to a very small scale and still be economic. One of the things you have to do is, whether it's natural gas coming out of a pipeline or it's biogas, you have to take the moisture out of the fuel. When you compress it to 3,000 to 5,000 psi, that humidity goes up in that gas. As the pressure goes up, the humidity goes up. And you don't want condensation in your fuel line in the middle of winter when it's 20 below. You're going to get frost line freeze. So that way in Wisconsin, we use a dew point of minus 40 at 5,000 psi, a very, very dry gas. And here's what we will typically see on our gas quality going in and what some of the components are where we're coming out. We've actually seen better than this as far as the methane content. We've been getting methane coming out of our systems up to 99% methane. And what we have learned over the systems and going through our startups and operations, we can actually dial in the quality of that fuel, whether you want a premium fuel, a standard grade, by varying that BTU content. And the efficiency of the system does change somewhat for that. But the big things that we want to see are H2S as a non-detect and the siloxanes that we're taking out. Those are the things that really can wreak havoc with the engine. When you're talking about a little less or a little more CO2 or oxygen or nitrogen, as long as it's in safety parameters, it is an acceptable vehicle fuel. And the vehicle fuel standards are slightly less than what natural gas pipeline standards would be in this area. And this slide just gets to some of the carbon footprint of what some of the different fuels are, and you can see where some of the renewable CNGs are over on the right with a very low carbon footprint. And again, this is going to depend upon whose studies you talk to and where you go, but I think most people agree this is one of the cleanest, greenest fuels you can get. This is just a diagram here of actually, I mean, it is possible to have a full circle project, and you'll see some pictures of exactly this type of project in Sacramento, where it's a waste fleet that collects food waste scraps, puts it into a digester, makes product from that, and between fertilizer, solids, bedding, and then also their own vehicle fuel. These are the basic components of what you're going to see in any biogas to vehicle fuel project. While you can use a water scrubbing technology, a pressure swing absorption, we happen to use a membrane technology. The components will be similar. This is just a compressor and a flare that's used typically to collect the gas. And this is what would typically be on a digester, wastewater plant, or a landfill if it's not used. Hydrogen sulfide removal. This part actually here is for carbon and VOC removal. What you see here is a compression station that'll take it up to 5,000 psi into these storage tanks. And then you'll have your fueling station, and this is actually a card reader right here. These storage tanks, depending upon how many you have, can be a very expensive part of a CNG fueling station. This is down a Louisiana project, just another picture of the system. This is actually the compression, the components like talked about, the storage, and there are different options for this, as Maria had alluded to. There's time fill and there's fast fill, there's combination fill. The other thing we are looking at right now is a remote fill, which is essentially on a tube trailer, where if you're not hooked up to a gas line, or if you do have a gas system where you're producing biogas, want to take it to vehicle fuel, it's about a $250,000 trailer that'll take it up and allows you to transport that fuel. So we've looked at that for several clients of ours right now, and that fueling trailer can actually be used in place or in addition to your storage at your fueling station. This is a time fill option. School buses are a great option for this. Not too many school buses are running around in the middle of the night. So they're coming back and parking. The option, the cost advantage of going to a time fill system is that you don't have the storage. It goes directly from that compressor right into the storage tanks on the buses. And this picture is compliments of Angie. And anybody familiar here with Angie? There must be a few people. I mean, they are a major manufacturer, assembler of CNG fueling stations, started out of Milton, Wisconsin, doing work internationally. They are now operating out of Janesville. This is an example of a fueling station. If you're not familiar with the fueling station, it is not that much different than recharging a battery. You got a compressor instead of a battery charger that slowly pushes that gas into a storage facility. The storage tanks are essentially the same as that battery. What you see here is we're starting out with a certain amount of gas in that storage tank. Trucks come in and fill. That gets down and depleted to a certain amount. Over time, that starts to recharge and fill back up. More trucks come in, goes back down. So you are looking at that. If you do go to that, it's not like having a tank full of fuel there. You may have to actually look at your vehicles and how you stagger those. The other option is just to put in a much larger compressor and put in more storage, but that's more money. This is a way to manage your fleet and your cost of your station that goes in. Now that's kind of the basics on where we're at, but just show you some of the example projects Two of them here in Wisconsin, and then St. Landry Parish in Louisiana, Riverview, Michigan, landfill, and then Sacramento, California. The Dane County project was the first project that we did of this type, and it actually is one of the first. This is the smallest scale project at its time, I think, especially of a vehicle fuel, but even for any biogas energy products. It was a 50 SCFM. At the time it was 20 when we sized it. It's been since upgraded to 50 SCFM. Dane County is operating 19 vehicles. Earlier this year they may have bought more, and they started with one single vehicle that they bought off of federal surplus. I believe it was from Camp McCoy, an older pickup truck. And this is in addition to 6.4 megawatts of power that they produce on site. It did receive the 2011 US EPA LMOP Project of the Year award. So this is the system there. I mean, this system is approximately 30 feet by 15 feet. I mean, this all fits on a trailer, and it came, a lot of it was self-contained. You got the controls there, a chiller there to drop some of the dew point out, and then the gas conditioning system. What you'll see over here, because we are in Wisconsin, there are certain components that have to be protected from freezing. You'll see a few of the other projects that don't need that are down in Louisiana and Sacramento. This is the first vehicle that we filled, and you can see this. The story on this project was there were several other fueling stations in Wisconsin prior to this, but they were owned by utility companies. This is the first fueling station that the Department of Commerce had done, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. This fueling station, which you see right here, was back from 1980 actually. It was built, and it had been sitting there unused for a number of years. It was built by Angie, unused, and it was donated to Madison Area Technical College, who participated in this project. Had not run for about 20 years. We took it back to Angie and said, can you help us and donate to this project? The person who built it still worked there. So he kind of worked on that, but we got out to the Department of Commerce, and they really didn't know what to do with this. The fire marshal did not know what to do with it. That is, a lot has changed since 2011 with the stations going up. But the thing we have found when you do a biogas system, that fueling station has to be sized very closely to match what the biogas system is producing. We got lucky, and the donated system matched perfectly to what we needed. So it allowed us to do what we did for about 6 or 7 months, and then the system died and the compressor went out, and Dane County's putting in a new CNG fueling station currently. That should be up in about a month. Here's their vehicle fleet. Like I said, they started small, and they started replacing vehicles as they needed them. There aren't too many companies that can go out and just get rid of all of their vehicles and buy new ones. Same for municipalities. They started, as they bought new vehicles, buying CNG vehicles. This is some testing we did. This is our company truck. I'd have brought that today, but it is a work truck, and we had a project, actually some repair work, construction work over in Minnesota, and that ruled on me taking it here. But we did do some testing on that vehicle. One of the questions that comes up is, how do these vehicles perform compared to gasoline or diesel? This vehicle is a bi-fuel vehicle, so it runs on gasoline or natural gas. We tested it on 3 different vehicles. We sent it through 0 to 60. We did some pulling of 2,000 pounds with it, 5,000 pounds. We did a quarter-mile lap with it. So we did different things. They all performed fairly well. So we tested it with gasoline, natural gas, and the biogas. What we did find is the BTU level and the amount of gas you use does make a difference. This was actually done in a Quonset hut. When they tested it on gasoline, this was cold and it was winter, doors had to be open. When they tested it on the natural gas and the biogas, they felt perfectly fine to keep the place warm. It was about 10 below when this was done that day. I mean, it's a huge noticeable difference in just what the emissions are from these vehicles. Janesville, Wisconsin's on a wastewater treatment plant. This is the addition of a system that actually had a microturbine system in, and they essentially just added the CO2 removal to that system already. Again, there's the components of that system, a little bit different type of storage vessel that you see back here. But similar systems and similar components. One of the things you'll see, we talk about storage being different. The difference in this is, you can see they added 2 more storage tanks back there. And one of the unique things, their first vehicle, like Dane County started with an old pickup truck. This was Janesville's first CNG vehicle, a Dixie chopper lawnmower. And they're adding vehicles as they go now. So like I said, it's not just the vehicles, but I think they're proud that they mow their grass with their biogas from the wastewater treatment plant. This is St. Landry Parish. This system's been up and operating for over a year, and out of all the system, this is the system that really they put through its paces every day, day in, day out, and you'll see why when I show you their initial fleet of vehicles that they used on it. They sold carbon credits with this project, and they've also collected RINs on this project. And this received the 2012 US EPA's LMOP Project of the Year. That's a picture of the system, and again, down in Louisiana, they were not worried about frost protection. And this was a small community of a couple thousand people. This is a small landfill. This is a big deal. I mean, this put them on the map, and Catherine Martin, their solid waste director, has been invited over to France to talk about this and invited to a number of places. I mean, this is a big deal down in their area to put a small community on the map. A lot of interest in this project. Here's their initial fleet that they used. You see some sheriff's cars in there. You see some of their public works projects and vans, different things in there. And the vehicles have all been running well. They did run into some problems with a couple of the pickup trucks that were bi-fuel, and they had to put a heater line on the vehicle. They actually opted to save some money here and went with a used CNG fueling station. We won't do another project with a used CNG fueling station again, I'll tell you that right now. I mean, it came used, and we had to do a lot of rehab on that to get that up and operating, but the biogas system and the conversion has been running very well. There you can see what the system is producing. That was the testing during the startup, and it's typically been at that 98, 99% methane is what they've been producing on the system. Sacramento, California, this project was started up last week. This was a food waste digester. We're seeing a lot with organics and food waste and getting those out of the landfills and where we can go with those. This is essentially a two-stage project. The first one was a 100 CFM system that'll produce about 250 gallons a day equivalent. And this is being done in conjunction with a waste disposal company, Atlas Energy, and then also this is a clean energy fueling station. You probably, if you pay any attention to CNG, clean energy is probably the biggest player in the United States in the CNG market. This is just description. I mean, this is a closed loop system. We have opportunities certainly to do this here in Wisconsin. Here's a picture of their system. California, I was down there about 3 weeks ago, and it was about 85 degrees. This tarp here is where they store some of their product in. When I was there, they had cases and cases of outdated Campbell's soup. There's a lot of food processing in that Sacramento area and just in that valley, so they are getting a lot of residuals. They also get the scraps from University of California, Davis that are coming in. This component right here is essentially a grinder that separates the organics from the food, essentially canned goods, whatever they're throwing in, it's separating it out. Back here you can see them, it's a three-stage digester that's going on above ground, insulated, and this is actually the CNG station here. I mean the CNG gas conditioning system, bio-CNG, and the CNG fueling station is off to the left. But this is the prettiest garbage truck I've ever seen. So these are the vehicles that they're running around in that area. They're new bio-CNG transportation vehicles. Riverview, Michigan, this is another one that just started up, municipality going forward, 100 SCFM system. Now they're starting small. They've had trouble getting their vehicles converted. They plan on getting some of their older vehicles converted, and what they're finding is those conversion kits are not available. Here's the bio-CNG system. It's in a colder climate like would be here in Wisconsin, so that's insulated. Here's the installed system that they have at Riverview, Michigan. This is near the Detroit area. Lessons learned through the projects we've done to date, and this is over probably the last 5 years. You know, biogas to CNG is an effective alternative to electrical production, and it can be cost competitive. You know, it is real. You know, years ago, even when, especially when we were working on the Dane County, can you do something this small and will it work? I think we've proven and other people have proven there's other technologies out there. There are options. Yes, it does work. You need to consider site-specific economics when you're going to go forward with a project. It's not one size fits all. There are conditions that need to be known. To date, we have had no known vehicle issues with the CNG that we're producing, and I do believe that we are held to a higher standard, say, than natural gas, gasoline, diesel accepted standards. Taking gas out of a digester, a wastewater treatment plant, or a landfill, there is some hesitation from the vehicle owners to use that, so we have to show that it is clean. The other thing we've looked at is none of these systems are fail-proof. It would be a little bit like putting in your own electrical generation system and not being tied to the grid. What happens if something happens to your system? What happens if your digester goes down? What happens if your compressor on your CNG station goes down? You know, have a plan for a backup. Biogas quality makes a difference. In the digester gas, wastewater treatment gas, those are the ideal gases. The landfill gases are much harder to deal with, without a doubt. With that, I appreciate your time and your attention. A lot of information thrown out here, but I'll be around for a little bit here for any questions.
Do we have any questions right now?
How small is a scalable unit? 5 trucks, light duty. Where's the smallest a guy could get in?
You know, the smallest a guy can come in, and you know, it really depends upon what's your vehicle fuel use. We've had people come and talk to us about, I want a really small system. We want to go to some third world countries to make this. There are fixed costs with this, and there are safety considerations that we feel absolutely necessarily have to be done. When we start cutting costs and you want to get something down to something that produces 50 gallons a day, there are components that we'd have to put on there. That 50 SCFM, which is producing about 250 gallons of fuel a day, is the smallest we think we can go down to. I mean, to be honest, for us, that's like a break-even project, is what it is. So you kind of look at that if you've got 2 or 3 large vehicles, but that might be enough for 15 to 20 small vehicles, you know, and depending upon how much fuel you're going to be using on a daily basis. There are smaller systems out there.
Any more questions? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Well, right now we'd like to take a quick break, and actually there are some vehicles here out in the parking lot. If we go out the door and then take a quick left up the stairs and then go out to the parking lot, we'd like to start back up at 3 o'clock, if we could. And there'll be folks out there to show them to you. Thank you. Okay, let's get started. So we get everybody out of here on time before it gets lousy out. Such a beautiful day. Okay, up next we have Jeff Shefchik. He's the president of Paper Transport out of Green Bay, and he's run a fleet of CNG vehicles for about 3 years now. I was telling him earlier that how quiet one of his units was. I was driving across the Mason Street Bridge in Green Bay one day, and the thing kind of just pulled up alongside of me. I had my windows down, and well, that's a quiet truck. You know, it hardly made any noise at all. So, with that, please welcome Jeff.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, I'm with Paper Transport. We're an over-the-road, regional trucking company based out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm not sure who's moving my slides, but if you spend any time on 43, you probably see a lot of our trucks on 43 with the PTI logo on the air shield. But we also have operations, trucks based out of Chicago. We have trucks based in Oklahoma, Florida, and Georgia. So the first thing here, is why we chose natural gas. And for me, I started looking at natural gas trucks in the summer of 2009. And this was right after Barack Obama got in office. And there was all the talk about cap and trade and carbon credits and all these environmental things. And I wanted to go out and find an environmental solution for our customers. And I thought if I could bring that to them at an economical price, that would create a competitive advantage for us. So that's why we started looking at it. And the bottom 3 bullet points is what I quickly found with natural gas vehicles. And you'll see these 3 bullet points on every presentation related to natural gas vehicles. It's the same 3 reasons that everybody has. And the first one is the economical benefit of natural gas versus diesel. And we've got some slides coming up that'll show the cost differential and the potential savings. Then there's the environmental benefit. Natural gas is just a cleaner fuel than diesel. And then it's the domestic fuel, and obviously that plays a big part as well. Back in 2009 when I started looking at this, we were importing 66% of our oil was foreign oil, something like $450 billion a year leaving this country to buy foreign oil. Today that number is all the way down to 50% of our oil is imported oil. And that's driven by a couple of things. I think the economy is down, so we're using a little bit less fuel. Also, the fuel efficiency of vehicles continues to rise. And then also what we're doing with all the oil that's being produced now in North Dakota and other parts of the country with additional drilling. But certainly, you think you've seen some of the statistics on the flyers where 98% of natural gas is domestically produced here in the U.S. So like I said, I started researching it in 2009, ordered the first 2 trucks and took delivery of those first 2 trucks in February of 2010. And those were identical to the truck that you've seen outside. That's the Freightliner M2 with the Cummins ISLG engine. That engine is a 9-liter engine with 320 horsepower. That's much smaller than what we usually use. We usually run a 13 or a 15-liter engine with 400 or 450 horsepower. But certainly with the application that we're going to use those trucks for, running Green Bay to Chicago in a no-hill environment, that engine would work. The first truck came with what you saw out there is a 75 gallons in the back of the cab. It's actually 5 15-gallon tanks in there. On that truck out there, we've added another truck on the side, on the passenger side of the vehicle, another 40-gallon tank. So what that truck has is 115 gallons, and that has about 500-mile range on that truck. Today we've got 35 natural gas trucks, and we've got even more trucks on order that are coming with the 12-liter engine, which I'll talk about in a minute. The first 2 trucks that we took, both of those have over 500,000 miles on them today. So we've kind of proven out the longevity of the engine. And in total, we've run over 3.5 million miles on our natural gas trucks to date. Now my controls stop working. Okay. The trucks that we have on order right now are this new 12-liter engine. we got our first 12-liter engine. This was in the fall of 2011, and it was one of the test engines that Cummins put out. I think they put about a dozen of these out on the highway. So we've had that truck for a year and a half. We've got over 185,000 miles on that engine, and we've had 0 natural gas related failures, with that engine. So that's the engine for, companies like us that are in an over-the-road trucking business, 18-wheelers hauling 80,000 pounds. That's the engine that we've really been waiting for, is that the larger engine. Like I said, it's performed very well from a reliability standpoint. And now it's been delayed a little bit, but that engine is now in full production. This next slide here, this is a picture of that truck. This is a Kenworth truck, and as you can see, this truck has the sleeper on it. Again, we've got the side tank on there, the 40-gallon side tank. So again, this truck has 115 gallons. But the other thing you could do is put another tank on the other side of it, get up to 155 gallons, and that would give you over 700-mile range. And with the fueling infrastructure that's being built out right now, there's fuel stations in Wisconsin, there's a couple down in Indiana. By midsummer, we plan on taking these trucks and running all the way to Ohio and back with them. So that's going to give us the range where we can really run pretty much the Midwest, out of Green Bay, going to Minneapolis, going to Chicago, going to Iowa, anywhere in Indiana, going out to Columbus, Ohio, and other areas like that with the fueling infrastructure that exists. For us, because everything that we're doing is pretty much running across the interstates, all we need is a handful of stations, between the major cities, and we can hit those areas. I'm not sure who's controlling my slides, but we'll go on anyway. This next slide right here talks about, CNG versus LNG. And for us, when we first started looking at it, there really only was CNG stations available. So it was the station availability to start out. And still today, station availability is a big deal. Like Maria had mentioned, there's 27 CNG stations in Wisconsin. There's only 1 LNG. And the public infrastructure for CNG continues to be building out faster. There's many, many stations around the country being built. I'm continually watching where they're popping up in the different cities to figure out which routes can we run in the next coming year with our natural gas trucks. The other thing we looked at is the cost. CNG is a lower cost fuel. For LNG, to make LNG, they need to take that natural gas and cool it down to negative 250 degrees to get it to turn into a liquid. So there's just a lot of cost in that liquefaction plant. And then that fuel also needs to be transported. So it's put in a truck and it's hauled to the station. The natural gas in a CNG application comes through the utility pipeline right to the station and is compressed on site. And our trucks use anywhere from 15 to 20,000 gallons a year in fuel. So even 25 cents a gallon is thousands of dollars at the end of the year in fuel costs. The next point on there is just the ease of use. You can see by the multitude of CNG vehicles that are out in the parking lot that anyone can use a CNG vehicle. Very commercially available. Whereas the LNG, being a liquid that's negative 250 degrees, when you're fueling that vehicle, you've got to put the big gloves on, the apron, and the face shield, and some of those things. And then there's just the other things like, an LNG vehicle. If that vehicle sits for a few days, that LNG starts to warm up and evaporates off of the tanks. And then the maintenance facility requirements. Because CNG is a scented gas, it has that rotten egg smell, just like the gas that comes to your home. There's less requirements for the maintenance facilities with that. Whereas LNG, when they cool that down to that negative 250 degrees, that chemical that's in there to give it the scent, that drops out of the fuel, so it's not scented. So you need methane detection and a whole bunch of other requirements for the maintenance facilities if you're going to be using LNG. A little bit more on the fueling infrastructure. The fueling infrastructure continues to build out. There's 3 different companies just in Wisconsin that are building CNG stations here. And throughout the country, there's many of the companies that are traditional petroleum providers that are going out and building CNG stations. And like I tell people, today's Tuesday. If you wanted to build a natural gas station, there's 5 people that'll be on your door by Thursday that are willing to build a station for you. So the stations that are popping up, across the country, many different providers building them. Locally up in Green Bay, we partner with Trillium CNG to get that station built in De Pere for our fleet. This is one of the questions that I looked at, about a year after we had those first 2 trucks before we really made, significant investment to get up to the 35 where we are today, is what's different today. Natural gas vehicles have been around for more than 30 years, and what's happened in the past is they've kind of popped up when oil prices, oil prices shot up, natural gas vehicles would come around. So, what's different today than 30 years ago? And what I did is I went around the industry and asked what are the, supposed industry experts and said, what's going to be different? Why should I be investing in natural gas vehicles today? And the first bullet point on there is a really big deal. It's China and India and the world demand for oil. Oil really is a global product, and it's going to be driven by that demand. And you look at China, and I think the statistics are something like 1 vehicle for every 100 people in China. And as they start to buy more cars, that global demand for oil is going to continue to rise. The other thing is hydraulic fracking. We haven't talked about that much yet today, but with the hydraulic fracking in the U.S., just the supply of natural gas is going to continue to be high, and it's also decoupled that pricing. It used to be that when oil went up, not sure what's causing that. When oil went up, natural gas prices went up, but now with hydraulic fracking, that's really separated, and that huge supply of natural gas will keep those prices down, which I'll talk a little bit more about the overall cost of a gallon of CNG in just a minute. The engine performance today is much better than it ever used to be. Now they have engines that are specifically designed to run on natural gas versus just conversion kits and things like that. And then the other thing is the vehicle availability. Right now all of the OEMs are building natural gas vehicle, whether it's in the heavy duty environment, the Freightliner, the Kenworth, Peterbilt, Volvo, all of them are building natural gas vehicles, or in the medium and light duty, GM, Chevy, or GM, Ford, Chrysler, all of them are coming out with natural gas vehicles. These are some of the issues that we looked at and that we face today in dealing with that. The customers, from my standpoint, my customer are the large manufacturer or the large retailers, and for them, the environmental aspects are a big deal. So we're getting customers that are coming to us, or we're going out and talking to our customers, the shippers, and it does make a difference. From the driver standpoint, when I go and talk to our drivers, a guy that's been in a natural gas truck for a couple months, and I go and ask him, say, how do you like the truck? And the driver will go through and he'll give me, 2 or 3 things about the truck, and none of them are related to the fuel. He'll talk about the layout of the dash, or he'll talk about the ride, or he'll talk about, all of the stuff related to the cab. None of it has anything to do with the fuel, which means it's a non-issue for the driver. If I ask them specifically about the fuel, the only thing he'll tell me is, well, the truck's a lot quieter. The only thing for the driver is they have to fuel the truck every day versus every other day with a diesel truck, so that's a little bit of an inconvenience. But the big advantage that they get is at the end of the day, they don't smell like diesel. Their hands don't smell like diesel, and they don't stink at the end of the day. So the next thing is the regional application. Right now we're running primarily locally, either in Green Bay. We also have some operations in the Fox Valley, and we run Green Bay to Chicago. So how do we take this the next step and start running regionally and start running cross country? And that's really going to happen this year. With that 12-liter engine coming out, that gives us the power that we need to run longer and run in, hilly applications, and also the fueling infrastructure. And the fueling infrastructure is being built. Today, there is, we can get from Wisconsin, we get down to Louisville, there's a station there. Later this summer, there's a station being built in central Georgia. We can get all the way down there. We can get all the way to Florida and back. By the end of this year, we'll have trucks that'll be running that route, from Green Bay to Florida and back. The maintenance is the other question. You know, this one I think is going to be a little bit of a hurdle yet. You know, today we have very good support with the Cummins dealer up in Green Bay, and they've been a great partner for us. And as we go out, though, and start, you know, crossing the country with this, we may run into some issues with the maintenance, but I think that that's going to be pretty quickly overcome, too, because there's just a lot of other natural gas vehicles out there. Today, 50% of the garbage trucks or refuge trucks that are being built are powered by natural gas. So these other truck dealers, they're going to see other natural gas vehicles in their shop. So they're going to have to learn to work with that. So I think that maintenance is pretty quickly going to, you know, be a non-issue as well. And then I already kind of talked about the fuel and that infrastructure that's being built out. This slide right here is one of the most important ones, you know, in my whole deck. And this really goes into the cost of a gallon of fuel. And what I have here is a CNG gallon and a diesel gallon. In the CNG, I've got a 231 because this is a diesel gallon equivalent. When you're buying CNG at the station, you're buying a gasoline gallon equivalent. And there's an 11% difference between a gallon in the energy content of a gallon of CNG versus diesel. So I've kind of grossed that up to get up to the 231. But what you start out with is that top number is the raw commodity price. And that is the actual, you know, methane or natural gas that is in the gallon. From the diesel standpoint, that's the oil. That's the barrel of oil that's in there. And these prices are based off of about $90 oil, and that's kind of where we've been over the last few months, is somewhere in that $90 to $95 range. And on the CNG, it's based on $4 a decatherm, which is pretty much where the price is today for natural gas. So you've got all the other cost items in there. You have the refining cost. The other thing is taxes are already in there. I get asked that question a lot as well. You know, natural gas is really cheap today, but if they ever start taxing that, that's going to drive it up. No, they already are taxing it. Taxes are in there. Then you got the station margin, the OEM, the capital cost. You know, the big component of the cost of the CNG is that capital cost. It's about $1 million to build a CNG station that has the horsepower to, you know, fuel large trucks. So you get down and you've got, you know, somewhere $1.60, $1.70 a gallon savings. But the important number is really the bottom number, and that's what percentage of that total cost is the commodity cost. So what that shows us is if natural gas goes from $4 a decatherm to $8 a decatherm, the price of that gallon of CNG is only going to go up by 53 cents. If oil goes from $90 a barrel to $150 a barrel, you're going to see that cost of diesel go up by $1.20, $1.50 a gallon. So that's the difference there in how much cost is really in the commodity. And, you know, as far as natural gas prices going up, really what's happened over the last couple of years is the producers of natural gas have actually taken their drilling rigs, pulled them out of the areas where they're producing natural gas and moved them to where they're drilling for oil because the price of oil is so high. If you get natural gas up to $5, $6 a decatherm, they're going to move those drilling rigs back to the natural gas fields and start drilling for natural gas again. Our future plans for natural gas, obviously we're very bullish on natural gas as a transportation fuel, and that's really because of the points on here. You know, the environment and the economics are part of every company's strategic plan and what they're looking out into the future. And a lot of it is that, you know, that sustainability of pricing. They're looking out in the future and saying, hey, I think oil is going to be, you know, $100, $120, $130 a barrel, and that's going to push those diesel prices up to $5 a gallon, $5.50 a gallon, whereas natural gas is going to stay low. And then the other thing is for us is just the new business that has developed. It's certainly opened a lot of doors for us with new customers and, you know, the new opportunities to grow our business. And I think natural gas is going to create a tremendous economic boom in this country with all the jobs related to it, and you know, specifically in manufacturing and the low cost of energy. You know, the other thing as far as natural gas prices and rising, the natural gas that we use in transportation is a very small percentage of the total natural gas used in this country. Even if we took, in our trucks, again, I mentioned our trucks use somewhere between 15 to 20,000 gallons of fuel a year. If we put 2 million natural gas trucks on the road, that would only increase our demand on natural gas by 10%. So it's a small percentage. You know, the use of natural gas for electricity and manufacturing is going to be much greater than it is for transportation. I think that's my last slide. So I guess I could take any questions right now, or else I'll be around for a while as well. Yep.
You mentioned that converting the trucks to natural gas created new business opportunities.
Yep.
Can you explain that?
His question was around, you know, the natural gas creating new business opportunities for us, and was really with our customers. You know, again, our customers are the large manufacturers, and you know, our name is Paper Transport. And I tell people, if you're a trucking company in Wisconsin, you haul paper. You know, so our customers are, you know, the Procter and Gamble, SCA, Georgia Pacific, and people like that. We've also had interest from, and I don't want to drop names on any other list, but you know, the customers that are interested in that, in the environmental benefits of the natural gas. And again, in some cases, it's our customer's customer, you know, who might be Walmart or someone like that, who is, you know, gets a lot of pressure from the government on their carbon footprint. Yep.
Presentation on the actual costing, there was a dime difference in the tax between natural gas and diesel.
Yep.
What is that reflected by? Can you explain, please?
Yeah, and I think that was on this slide here. If you look on that has the 48 versus 58. That has the state, Wisconsin, and the federal tax built in there. That's just the way they're taxing it today. Now, someday will, you know, the different lobbyist groups whine and complain and get that equal. Should that be equal? Probably. You know, if you, I guess it depends if you know what's fair. You know, on an energy equivalent, should those be the same? Yeah. But if it's me, I would penalize the foreign oil. 50% of diesel is foreign oil. I'd jack that up another 25 cents is what I would do, and have people use American fuel. But yeah, there is a dime difference, but it's not 58 cents difference. You know, some people think there's no tax in it at all, and that there's 58 cents. That's not the case. And that is different by every state as well, but that's the same on gasoline and diesel. The tax in each state is different.
Any?
On the new trucks that we're getting right now with the 12-liter, there is about a $60,000 upcharge for that new truck. So depending upon where diesel prices are, just in the last couple of months, diesel prices we buy on a wholesale level have been anywhere from $3.60 a gallon to $4 a gallon. So that payback on that $60,000 is anywhere from 3 years to, you know, if we're at 360, 7 years, which then there's no payback because it's a 7-year, you know, asset. The weight difference, I think, is actually very similar. And the, you know, this truck, if I can find it, this truck right here weighs 19,000 pounds, which is the exact same as our new diesels weigh. And this truck has 500-mile range. You know, so there was no weight penalty on this truck because the diesel trucks have gotten a lot heavier in the last few years with all of the emissions things that they've had to put on them. And I think Mike from Truck Country will talk a little bit more about that, about all the emission standards that are on the diesel trucks, which have made them heavier. So, you know, if we were to put another 40-gallon tank on here to give us 700-mile range, you know, we might have 1,000 pounds a difference in weight. But again, not significant because most of our loads don't gross out at the full 80,000 pounds.
Over the
last 10 years. If the industry converts to CNG, how do you anticipate will the surcharges go away? Will they become minimal? What are your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of different ways to do the fuel surcharges. Right now with, our industry, over-the-road trucking, there's obviously diesel fuel surcharges on everything that we do. With the handful of customers that we're doing some dedicated operations with, we're handling it a couple of different ways. For some of those customers, we are using, the actual natural gas price to figure out a fuel surcharge. But then obviously our base rate has to be higher because we paid a lot more for that vehicle, and they just pay a lower rate in the fuel surcharge. Prices are market driven. I mean, we'll price it however the customer wants. With natural gas, with the stability in pricing, and for us to go out and get long-term contracts to buy natural gas, I'll give my customer an all-in rate. No fuel surcharge. Let's take the fuel surcharge. Let's take the variability of your shipping cost completely off the table, and I'll lock that price in for 5 years. So those are some of the things that we can do. There's a pretty significant difference in fuel economy. Today we're seeing about a 20% loss in fuel economy, and that's why you have the long payback. Again, I think over time that natural gas engine will catch up. It's never going to completely close the gap because this natural gas engine is a spark ignited engine, whereas a diesel engine is compression ignited, and a compression ignited engine is just more efficient than a spark ignited engine. But when you're saving $1.70 a gallon on 20,000 gallons a year, you can afford some loss in fuel economy. This is an OEM system. This engine is a Cummins Westport. It's a joint venture between Cummins and Westport Innovations. So this is right from the factory. Fully warranted right from the factory. Okay.
Do you know if that system is available as an aftermarket or another company?
Not from Cummins Westport. I mean, there are some people out there doing conversion kits and different things like that. I think the real hurdle that they face is meeting EPA emissions. Just the cost of meeting EPA emissions is going to make it very difficult for anyone. And I think the cost of converting a used engine, the payback probably just isn't there. My opinion is that as you would buy new vehicles, you would convert. Just because to start converting vehicles, to spend money on a vehicle that's half used, you're not going to get that payback because the conversions are expensive. There's a $60,000 upcharge on this truck. Yep. Yes, 80% of the components in the engine that you've seen or the engine that's in this truck are the same components that are in the diesel engine. So essentially it's, again, my engineering capabilities and mechanics will run out pretty quickly here, but basically I think it's the top half of the engine, which would be the heads, that is changed out, to go from a compression engine to a spark ignited engine.
Any more questions?
Yep. Yeah, the fueling station, and again, it's not ours, it's a Trillium station, but any of the Kwik Trip stations, you know, they're hooked right up to the utility gas line. You can put a CNG station anywhere that there is a natural gas line. Obviously, the higher the PSI in that natural gas line that you're starting with, the better. But yeah, it's just a utility line.
Issues there. One is pressure, and the other one is volume. You need to be able to pull the volume of gas through. So you can't just place them anywhere. So there are better places than others. Let's put it that way. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Can we get a hand for Jeff? Looks like we've got maybe gremlins in the mouse or something. It's moving stuff ahead. Our next speaker is Jeff Gilberts, and he works in alternative fuels for Kwik Trip, and he's going to talk to you about basically light-duty natural gas vehicles. And then our last speaker will talk about heavy-duty, just to give you a little bit of a context there. Please welcome Jason.
All right, thank you. As a lot of you know, that Kwik Trip is starting to put in fueling stations across Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As Jeff was alluded to, on the heavy-duty side, he has 35 of his trucks switched over right now. We have about between 30 and about 33 of our Class 8 semis that are running on natural gas as well. We have about 130 Class 8s in our fleet right now. We also have 160 light-duty vehicles. Those vehicles are for our store auditors, all the way up to our store engineering that go out and service our different locations. As Emily and Maria and Jeff have covered the benefits of natural gas, I'm not going to go over a whole lot about it today. They've done a fine job of covering those. Some of the different components for these natural gas vehicles, you'll have a separate fuel rail. You'll have a coalescent filter that needs to be changed every about 10,000 miles. You have your separate CNG tank, and then you also have a regulator, taking that pressure from 3,600 PSI all the way down to 150 PSI. These are some different vehicles in the La Crosse area that run natural gas. You can see in the top left corner there, the Silverado, that is an aftermarket conversion kit that runs on natural gas or gasoline, that is biofuel. Same for the Fastenal truck on the bottom right-hand side there, and the Weezer van on the left-hand side. Okay. All right. And then, as you see in the top right corner, Baker Equipment, they didn't want any tanks inside the cab or any underneath. So what they found a solution where you'd be able to put them along the roof of the van as well. They have 42 GGEs in there, so they have twin 21-gallon tanks on there. We haven't used it in any of our applications yet. Only downside that we see to that is adding all that weight to the top of the van may make it a little unstable going down the road, get a big gust of wind, probably going to throw you off a little bit. But like I said, we haven't used it in our application. This is just a different way that they've used the different tank placements. At a retail level, you'll see the dispenser there. Same dispensers we have for our gasoline diesel. It's a Gilberts dispenser with the Kraus guts in it. The only different thing is you're going to see in the top right corner is the fueling nozzle is a little bit different. Right now we have 10 natural gas locations, CNG locations across Minnesota and Wisconsin. The 10th one just opened up a couple weeks ago in Appleton. And then as you can see on the map here, hopefully you guys can see that fairly well. The green dots are the stations that are currently open. So we have one just south of here down in Sheboygan, over in Oshkosh and Appleton. You go down to Pewaukee and Sturtevant. And then we have 2 in La Crosse. And then you go across Minnesota on 90 to Rochester, then over to Owatonna, Minnesota as well. The blue dots represent some of the spring builds that have, the one that has opened up, and also some summer ones that are going to open up in the next couple of months here. So we'll have one in Janesville, down then around Madison in the Verona area, Lake Mills. You get over to Minnesota, we have one just south of cities in Eagan, over Mankato, Albert Lee, St. Michael, and then we're going to have our first one that will be open up this summer as well in Cedar Falls, Iowa. And then the red dots are representing different markets that we are still doing some research on. These could be some of our fall builds as well, looking in the Green Bay, the Bondwell area, over towards the Eau Claire, Menominee area as well. And then basically what we want to do is establish so you can drive from the cities down to Des Moines, over to Chicago, up to Milwaukee, up to Green Bay, and not have to worry about range anxiety at all. And with commitment from our ownership, by the end of this year, we should have around that 30 mark, and then eventually, in 5 years, our ownership said they want to see between 70 and 90 natural gas fueling locations within the 3-state area. And these are some different vehicle options. So just about any application right now, there is some type of option, whether it's running F-250 all the way down to your passenger vans, your taxi cabs, your utility companies, you know, your plumbing and heating, electrical companies as well. These are some different conversion companies that we have worked with. We have used a handful of these. These are the QVMs. These are aftermarket conversion companies. We've tested a handful of these and have had great results so far. One of the biggest things that you're going to hear is the price point for these conversion kits. Right now, we are seeing anywhere between about $7,000 to just right around $10,000 right now. But with more and more of these companies coming on, we are starting to see that price come down. It's kind of like the flat screen TV aspect. Look at flat screen TVs, 5-6 years ago, how much they were. Now today you can get them for a very reasonable price, and we're starting to see that right now. Also with the tanks, they are probably one of the most expensive part of the conversion kits and any application. But with 3M getting involved right now, they've already started to bring that price point down as well to make it more user-friendly for us. Especially in here, Wisconsin, there's not tax incentive like there is down in Oklahoma or out in California where they're getting incentives to purchase these vehicles. This way, so it's it's very affordable for them. As these prices come down, it's going to be a lot more affordable for the everyday user. Different major OEM products. Right now, Honda Civic is the only one that has the off-the-line dedicated natural gas vehicle. Then you can see Chevy has their 1500 that is, a 2500 that is a biofuel aspect. Then there's the Chevy Express van, the Dodge 2500. And then you can see on the bottom row there that is Ford's line. Right now they're kind of the leaders in the natural gas vehicles. They have nothing that comes directly off the line. Theirs is, they have their QVMs that will do the conversions for them. So I'm going to get into a little bit of each different type of vehicle. You have the Honda Civic here that I know Maria and Emily are driving. If you guys got a chance to go out there and look at Emily's Honda Civic out there, you notice when she opened up that trunk that tank takes up quite a bit of space. But there is some room in there, for luggage, or if you're a golfer, you can fit your golf bags in there as well. The GM, the Chevy option, this is for the Express van that I had showed on the previous slide. They have two different packages right now. There's the 3 tank, where you get about a 200-mile range, and also the 4 tank, where you get about a 300-mile range. And with that 4th tank is actually letter D on there. That is inside the cab. We have a demo unit right now from Chevy that we are using. We're taking to different seminars. One of the first things that people are noticing that the tank is right inside the cabins. It takes up quite a bit of space, but we're starting to see that different companies are coming up with different solutions. We're doing 2 conversions right now at our shop where we've taken that 4th tank and put it behind the passenger seat, the driver and passenger seat, kind of made a workbench out of the deals. That way it didn't take up any more space. They're still be able to put their shelving units in there and not have to worry about working around that tank. This is the GM option. They have the 18 GGE tank that sits in the back end there. We are starting to see different applications. Nothing has come to market yet. They are coming up with different solutions to where to place these tanks, whether it's along the bed or also we've seen them with longer tubes that are going to be flat laying on the bed, then kind of put a false floor on there. That way you can still get your pieces of plywood, your sheetrock on there, and not have to worry about any other space being taken up. The Ram 2500, they have a little different application. They have 2 tanks that, sit in the back. Those are twin 9 GGE tanks. So that takes up quite a bit of space. We just had a seminar a couple weeks ago around the Twin Cities, and a Chrysler rep was there, and he was talking about different applications that are coming out towards the end of this year and in 2014, where they'll come off the line still, and it's going to have the low pressure side of it, so it's going to have the fuel rails, injectors, and then you get to select what tank package you want. You can go with the twin tanks in here, or you can go with just a single tank as well, and then that ranges from the 18 GGE, all the way up to about a 24 GGE as well. One thing I want to point out on this one, it's a biofuel pickup. This one starts up on gasoline, and then it gets to a certain temperature, and then it'll switch over to run on natural gas. As long as there is natural gas in the vehicle, it will run on natural gas. Whereas if you get to the Ford, they'll start up on compressed natural gas, and it will run on natural gas, the same aspect, as long as there's some on there. And then the transition from natural gas to gasoline is seamless. You can be going down the highway, you run natural gas, switches over, you can't tell the difference. Some of the other conversion companies, they have different toggle switches. You can toggle back and forth between natural gas and gasoline, same aspect, push the button, you can't feel the transition going down the highway at all. This is Ford's a range of different vehicles they have out here. Like I said, what we've seen so far is they've kind of ahead of the game as the different options. You're going all the way from your Transit Connect, so your small utility vans, your taxi cabs, all the way up to F550, 560, the cutaway style as well. And then this is just another application. They're going to start going away from their E-Series vans and over to the Transit Connects. And right now, these are going to be offered in a dedicated or a biofuel aspect, and these are just 3 different styles that you can choose from. Then when it comes down to it, on the ROI for these, we like to use, when we get asked by different people out there, is this going to work for my company on the light duty side? And what we like to use for a rule of thumb is if your vehicle gets under 20 miles a gallon and you use over 20,000 miles a year, it's probably going to make good sense for you. Depending on how long you keep that vehicle for is one of the key factors as well. And how many miles you put on is a huge difference. And then as you can see on there, I have it broken out. So if you're running on 100% natural gas, you're obviously going to see the bigger return on it. And then somebody asked, well, what if I'm getting to areas where I'm not able to get to a natural gas fueling station? So that's where we put in the right-hand column there. You can see even running on 60% natural gas, you're still seeing a cost savings of around $130 per month. It's all the way, we kind of factored it out. If you even get down to about 40% natural gas usage, you're still seeing a savings as well. So I know I went through that kind of quickly. A few other things that Kwik Trip is doing. As I mentioned, we are doing conversions at our facility in La Crosse. We know it's not our bread and butter. It's just kind of a way to kind of get more vehicles out on the road. Just wait for more from different dealerships in the area to be able to be certified to do natural gas conversion kits. So I'll open up to any questions anybody might have.
Is there a certification requirement for that conversion?
Yes, there is. We only do EPA certified kits right now.
But not a mechanic, not a shop.
Excuse me?
But not a shop, the mechanic itself.
The mechanic is certified. They have to go through a class, so many hours of education and that to be able to work on these vehicles and install the kits.
The safety aspect of the natural gas tank versus like a gasoline tank on a vehicle, as far as if there's a crash or something like that, is there?
Actually, the natural gas tanks go through a lot more rigorous testing than they do for gasoline tanks or a diesel tank. Anywhere from they do different drop tests, they bonfire test these. I know Truck Country, I know he has a slide on it. Different applications, they shoot it with different rifles, different calibers. A 22 doesn't even make a dent. 30-06 shell makes a slight dent in it. It's all the way up to the 50 cal where it punctures it. And all that's going to do is just release the gas into the air. Since natural gas is lighter air, it's just going to dissipate and not pool like gasoline or diesel.
How
At the retail location, yep. We like to keep it the same as filling up on diesel or gasoline, so anywhere between 9 to 10 gallons a minute.
Any more questions? If not, thanks, Jason.
All right, thank you.
Everybody should have at their table these forms that, if you wouldn't mind filling out and turning in at the end. Well, we're getting the next presentation up. Maybe a little higher, Mike. I think there you go. Our next speaker is from Truck Country, and his name is Mike Gleiter. And Mike is the fixed operations manager for Truck Country. And he's going to talk about the heavy duty vehicles now. Please welcome Mike.
Weight, length, fundability, and financing. As you heard earlier from Jeff, what's driving natural gas? Economics is always there versus the diesel. Increased diesel fuel costs. Driving quick natural gas payoff. One of the big things for people that were scared of switching over to the new diesel engines with SCR, DPFs and regens, there's none of that on the natural gas trucks. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20% over the diesels. Noise reduction, as you heard with the truck running outside, you can, once the air compressor quits, you have a hard time hearing it. American jobs, renewable fuel, energy independence, customer driven, sustainable solution. Some of the sides that was brought up earlier about the cost. If you take a diesel engine out there running right now at 5.5 miles per gallon and a CNG running at 5.5 miles to the gallon, miles per year each at 100,000, price of fuel at $4.04 versus $2.22, the gallon difference a year, diesel at $15,385 and the CNG at $18,181. Fuel costs on the diesel at $62,155 versus the CNG at $40,363, and annual fuel savings at $21,792. And as Jeff alluded to, the price of the CNG truck being more at $60,000, if your numbers work that way, it'd be about a 2.75 year payback. And the difference between the natural gas and the LNG, everybody has talked about that so far with the compressor pumping the gas at 3,600 PSI. It's coming through the gas pipeline. Advantages, lowest price versus the LNG. It's easier for the, easier to fill, none of the protective equipment. Challenges volumes per energy content, requires more storage, a little bit different in the weight, range limits, and performance of existing stations, which was said earlier, a lot of that's been taken care of with replacement of compressors and stations. The dealer, the customer shop requirements, With the CNG, you do have to meet requirements by the NFPA 30A requirements, which is an international fire code. Full implementation can cost up to $50,000 per bay. With the 19 bays we have, there's only 2 bays in the shop that we can use for major engine repairs. Normal maintenance, we're fine, but a lot of it comes down to how often your air turns over in the building. But when it comes to busting into the fuel system, then you got to be behind the concrete walls, so that if anything would happen, it doesn't get back towards the other part of the business. And the biggest thing with it, as Jeff said before, CNG, you got an odor, LNG is non-odorized. And your local fire marshal has the final say. We bring our insurance company in, the local fire department, and everybody to make sure that everything was compliant before we move forward. Basically, the biggest thing that they look at with the CNG versus LNG, at the bottom here, explosion-proof lighting, or the height that the lights are off the ceiling, because the CNG is going to rise to the top of the building. And with your air movement sucking it out, it should dissipate it out very quickly. Whereas the LNG is going to have explosion-proof lighting, methane detector, heater locations have to be in certain spots, and with the exhaust fans. Driver reactions, as Jeff said it, you hear very few complaints on the engine or the fueling when you talk to the drivers when they drop the trucks off. Safety questions, at the start they're a little concerned, but after they've been in it and driving it, there's very little they talk about other than maybe their seat's squeaking or the radio's not working or some of these other items. And it's not about the fueling or things like that. Availability of fuel, time to fuel the truck, tank sizes, power. Proud Americans. How safe is a natural gas, as a person asked just a few minutes ago? Please go on to Google and go to CNG tank testing. Otherwise, YouTube has a lot of great videos on this. These tanks are heavily regulated, 20-year tank life. They're the type 3 and 4 tanks, lightest weight. Methane is lighter than air, will not pool under the vehicle. Drop tested, crash tested, bonfire tested, dynamite tested. In the video, they'll start with a quarter stick of dynamite up to a full stick. And it's quite amazing what these tanks can withstand. A gentleman in morning session said that these CNG trucks won't last because of the tanks, because he was driving a diesel truck for many years, and right behind the straps all was rotted out, and that's where the tanks leaked. With these type tanks, they're not going to leak. They won't rot out. Like I say, the pistol rifle testing, if you got time, please go on to Google and go on YouTube, because it's amazing. A 10-minute video, you can sit and laugh and see what happens, and it's amazing what they can withstand. There are methane detectors in the vehicles. Sensors are mounted in the cab, engine compartment. Visual and audible warning to the driver for fuel leaks. Trace amount, no concern. Significant amount is potential explosion concern. Natural gas will ignite when there is a 5 to 15% mixture in the air, but with the gas coming out and it's going straight up, that is highly unlikely. The methane detector is installed on all LNG engines. The CNG vehicles right now, you can omit that. It's not needed. And the methane detector, when the trucks first came out, they all had them. It's a green light up in the headliner, and as soon as you open the door, you can see it. And if there is any methane in the area, the little to the left of it, right below it there, with a little red glow to it, that there is the speaker that's going to be buzzing and telling that there's an issue. www.cngprices.com will give you the price of the fuels in the areas. Pioneers in the natural gas market. Sterling product launched at Port of Long Beach First, to publicly demonstrate an ISX-12 G-powered vehicle, local customer base with the product working, our own corporate fleet, Food Liner, which is down in the Iowa and runs all 48 lower states. They're running the CNG trucks also. We do have a demo program for customers to drive and learn. Should be back in operation in fourth quarter. We sold our 9-liter and are waiting for our 12-liter truck to come in. Freightliner did a CNG cross-country tour, and they started with it out in Long Beach, California to Washington, D.C., and did dealer events going across the United States to prove that a CNG can go from the West Coast to the East Coast. There was 5 stops between Long Beach and Washington: Phoenix, Oklahoma, Little Rock, Nashville, and Charlotte. And this was just to promote that this can be done, that it can go from coast to coast. But that's very strategic planning to make sure, as everyone has said in the meeting today, that there are fueling stations along the way. That's our demo program that should be back in, if anybody's looking at demoing one in the fourth quarter, is when we're anticipating our truck will be here. We're waiting for the 400 horsepower and manual transmission. Here's some of the configurations that we can put a CNG on in our M2 112, the 114 SD, both of the M2 112s and the 114 SD are with the 9-liter engine, 320 horsepower, Allison 3000 series, 60 to 75 gallon tanks. You can pull up to 65,000 pounds. With some applications, you can go to 80. With the new 12-liter engine coming out, they're trying to push the 9-liter down to the 66,000 pound capacity, and the 12,000 is, or the 12-liter will be for the 80,000 pound. But as Jeff has been doing and proven that 9-liter engine will haul 80,000 pounds with no issues. Freightliner is one of the only companies that installs natural gas tanks at the factory. They are factory installed agility tanks, and they're installed, the trucks are built at Mount Holly in the Cleveland plants. Like I said, all the natural gas components are factory installed and warranted. With the Cummins Westport ISLG, like I said before, it's a 9-liter engine, the horsepower. But the biggest thing with this one here is what I'm trying to get across. It is a dedicated natural gas, not a dual fuel, spark ignited. The B50 life of that engine is 500,000 miles. The engine is produced in Cummins Rocky Mountain plant, maintains a free after treatment system. It's maintenance free, nothing there. 3-way passive catalyst. No regen or ash cleaning. Base warranty is 2 years, $250, and an extended warranty is available. And on the side there, it shows you the difference from what the diesel industry right now is using compared to what the natural gas. For oil change intervals, you're looking at a 15,000 mile oil drain. You're looking at fuel filter at 30,000 miles, coolant filter at 15, spark plugs at 45,000 miles, change of the coolant at 60, and valve adjustment at 60. We'll be coming out with a Cascadia 113 day cab with a 12-liter engine. We'll have some arriving here in the next month. And that's with the ISX 12-liter. The first group until the fourth quarter of the year will be 350 horse engines with 1,400 foot-pounds, Allison 4000 HS, and it's a tandem chassis with 12 fronts, 40 rears, and a wheelbase of 192. And with this style sleeper truck, you'll be able to go with 40 to 45 gallon tanks on the frame rails, or 75 to 100 on the back of the cab. And with the ISLG, it's a 12-liter engine, 400 horse, 1450. Cleanest technology available and EPA 10 and CARB emission standard compliant. And this is not a dual fuel, it is dedicated natural gas engine. Spark ignited EGR engine, factory produced is Jamestown, New York plant, maintenance free after treatment, 3-way passive catalyst. Again, no regenning or cleaning. The only difference here is you got an optional engine brake. And the future is for Cummins to come out with an ISX 15 in 2015, which will be a 500 horse engine. We have here is the Cascadia 113, but just trying to show you some different configurations of fuel tanks at the back of the cab and along the side. And with a clear right-hand frame, you can see the exhaust is still underneath. Just showing you the tanks from Agility. Another version there where they're both on the frame rails, and so you got clear back of cab. And that one there's similar to the one we have outside. With the equivalence of going up to, with the day cab, you can also go with 150s. And just released a new tank for the back of the cab. But here's the range. Give you an idea what the range is with 75-gallon back of cab, typical 300 to 350. The 80s on the frame rails, 320 to 400. The back of the cab and the sides, 580 to 725. And if you put the 155s on, 620 to 775. Little difference in weight on the two vehicles here with the 155. The one above it does not have the 150, does not have the tanks on the back, but that's the diesel, and that one weighed in at 16.4 versus this one at 17.8. We're also available in the 26,000-pound GVW with the M2. And coming soon will be our sleeper, 48-inch sleeper coming soon with natural gas. Daimler Freightliner is predicting by 2016, by adding up what the sales will be with the 112s, the 114, this Cascadias, the school buses, the walk-in vans, that where it's at right now, in 2011, there's 1,700 CNG vehicles out there. In their minds, there will be 11,800 vehicles sold by Freightliner by the end of 2016. And as Jeff alluded to, the refuge market right now is 50% of the builds are CNG. And the world of the expo or the world of waste is going on in New Orleans right now. And McNeilius down there has a Freightliner CNG waste truck sitting in the booth, an M2 chassis built for it. So it's something that you're going to see more and more of. Just another calculator like we talked on how long would it take for you to pay off the difference. Our salesmen are fully capable of sitting down with you and going over the difference if it's CNG, LNG versus diesel. How long the payback will take. We also have available through Freightliner is the M2 hybrid with a Cummins ISB 200 to 300 horse with the Eaton parallel electronic hybrid driven, 6-speed ultra shift transmission with air brakes. So there's alternatives other than just the CNG in different applications. And coming soon, we have one truck that'll be ready for demo. The truck is being built as we speak. And it's a S2G, liquid petroleum gas commercial chassis that we'll be having, like I said, in the fourth quarter. and that is run by a big block V8 powered by GM, and it'll be backed with a Allison transmission. Truck Country as a group was founded in 1958, and as of right now we have third generation of family running the company, and we have 12 locations through Wisconsin and Iowa, and here to service your needs. And thank you all for coming today, and is there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that wraps it up for today. I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot. First of all, I guess the most amazing thing to me was actually the last two presentations, was just the variety of products that are out there and that are going to be out there that service this market. I mean, would you have ever expected that 5 years ago? I mean, it's just remarkable to me, both on the light duty and the heavy duty vehicles. It's remarkable. We, Wisconsin Public Service, back in the 1980s, I didn't say this morning, but back in the 1980s, actually when I first started with the company, we actually had CNG vehicles in our Green Bay facility. And they were converted, and the compressors were a problem, and as I think somebody had said earlier, I don't remember, it was you, Jeff, or somebody said something about a cell phone in the 1980s compared, no, it was Mark. It said a cell phone in the 1980s or 1990s compared to today. I mean, the technology's really come a long way. So, thank you all for coming, and please fill out the forms on the table and you can drop on the table on the way out, and have a safe drive home. Thank you very much.
One more thing, if you're looking for the presentations, we will post them on the website. We'll post them on the lakeshoreinitiative.webs.com, and it's on the one sheet that's on your table. It's also up there on the slide. So if you're looking for those handouts or the copies of the PowerPoints, again, lakeshoreinitiative.webs.com. You'll also find other information about the Industry Cluster Initiative there if you'd like more information on that. So thank you very much.